You're the luckiest person alive if you're seeing this video, because the chances of you becoming a millionaire is very likely. And I'm not saying this because I want to motivate you, but I'm saying this more from a statistical perspective, because firstly, it's like the people becoming millionaires nowadays are getting increasingly higher. That's number one. And number two, the different types of variations of millionaires. So the surface of opportunities for you to become a millionaire is increasing as well. And so let's talk about this for a moment, because I'll break down the specific factors on how and why. So if you click off this video because it doesn't interest you, honestly, fair enough. But if you are interested on how you can essentially change your life to become a millionaire, or if not a better person, then stick for a while. So the reason I'm saying this is because if you think about history, and if you do a little bit of the research, and you don't have to do in-depth research for this, but if you look at the millionaires that have become millionaires, let's say 30, 40, 50 years ago, they became millionaires through industries that we see nowadays as more traditional, right? We have manufacturing, agriculture, industrial stuff. We got the big factories owners. And these millionaires were basically generated through the idea of the Industrial Revolution, right? And elements of the Industrial Revolution. And so, yes, with that basic statistical prediction, we can also say that the millionaires that have, appeared from the dot-com bubble, or the IT revolution, as some people call it, has also allowed, for other people to become millionaires. And we have seen this, right? Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and all these other type of even young millennials becoming millionaires through e-commerce and the accessibility and the opportunities through the internet. So why is this current time period, you currently watching this video, even better, right? And better in the sense that you have a higher and an exponentially higher likelihood of becoming a millionaire. And it's because the first time in history, one of our evolutions, right? We have the Industrial Revolution, we have the agricultural revolution or evolution, essentially the same thing, and we have the internet revolution. But now we have something known as the AI revolution. And so why is the AI revolution different towards the rest, right? Because it's quite similar to the internet, right? But the difference here for AI is because AI is in itself, literally in itself, exponentially self-learning, right? Self-learning. And so what I mean by that is specifically is that during the internet.com bubble blast, where everyone suddenly became millionaires through the internet, the difference is it's because they became millionaires because it was usually a person or group of people, right, humans, that essentially created something, right, let's say this is a product, and became a millionaire because it, somehow involved the internet, and due to its resources, it basically made you rich, right? And so the difference is that in this AI revolution, you are not essentially relying on yourself as a human, right? So you don't have to create something with, just you, right? You don't need to fully utilize the resources of the internet to essentially create a product, because now you can literally use an artificial intelligence that is self-learning, that will basically work with you together to become a millionaire. And the crazy thing is a lot of people are literally eliminating the human element of the equation and making AI essentially become millionaires themselves. And eventually what these humans do is they just take ownership, right? They say, oh, I developed this AI and this AI made this. And because the AI created this, innovative product, now I became a millionaire because I'm owning the ownership rights. Okay? And so that's one angle of what I wanted to talk about, but there was something more important I would like to talk about. And it comes back to the the fundamental topic, right, for this discussion is abundance, right? Because let's talk about this for a moment. Because we live in a society, as we know, as a modern society, right? And the way we measure modernization is based on a few factors. But for me, it's mainly automation, and accessibility. I'm not sure if you can see this, right? And so there are many other factors that would fundamentally describe a modern society. But for me, the way I see modern society is that basic processes are getting automated. For example, I don't know, certain like repetitive tasks, emails, messages, I don't know, filling out your calendar, you know, doing groceries. So you get the point. There are certain processes that are getting easier and more convenient. And there are certain things, or a lot of things, that are getting more accessible in today's world, right? Because if you walk around, like in the town that you're currently at, most of the stuff that you can think about are literally accessible, right? You can access the best quality of food. You can access multiple variances of food. You can, you know, think of any food right now. I can almost guarantee you are accessible to that specific food. And for the majority of you guys watching this video, I assume you guys live in a first, if not second world country, if that terminology even exists. So for the majority of you guys, that is very often the case, you know, unless you come from a third world country, right? Or underdeveloped countries, you guys probably learn about these. They have a very different landscape, right? But for the, you know, purpose of this video, we'll just assume that you come from a society where the majority of things are quite accessible, right? And so that is mainly the case in comparison to society like 40, 50, 60 years ago. Let's say 40 to 70 years ago, right? If you're a huge history person, during that time there was a Cold War. And obviously society was completely different. There was different technologies. Cars were around, but they weren't advanced as we have today. There were specific innovations in physics and chemistry that allowed us for the, you know, things to exist today that we know. And so my point is that 40 to 70 years ago, life was, you know, quite different, right? And so in retrospect, if we go even deeper, let's look at life when it was like 500 years ago. And so before you guys click off this video, because I'm perhaps talking about something that's not so relevant, and maybe because you can't read this because it's a reflection, the point is that a lot of your fundamental configurations of your brain, right, a lot of things that are hardwired into your neurocortex, in other words, certain areas of your brain, was designed to survive the absolute and extreme catastrophes of life, right? Because if you think about your ancestors, they had, and I literally mean it, they had trouble surviving, right? There was perhaps predators everywhere, there was natural disasters, there was shortages in food, there were problems in crops, and the environment weren't the happiest, and you get the point. The point is that back then, and I mean like hundreds and hundreds years ago, survival was considered as a very lucky element, right? And so if you're a huge Charles Darwin's fan, then obviously you'll use survival of the fittest, theory of evolution. But there's a reason why you're surviving until now and even watching this YouTube video, is because you are equipped with certain characteristics and personality traits that has allowed you to survive until literally now, right? And so what is the issue, or what is the correlation with today's world in the modern society? And so the thing is because, coming back to the idea of abundance, there's every single type of resource that exists nowadays, right? Food, shelter, clothing, drinks. There's every type of necessity that you can think of already exists, right? So in other words, if you think about it, you're quite spoiled to that extent. Like, you have most basic necessities that your ancestors didn't have. And so perhaps in their eyes, we are quite spoiled, right? And that makes sense. But the issue is we are not here to, compare us to them. The issue is because our fundamental hardwiring is very similar to theirs, right? But they lived 500 to 1,000 to millions of years ago, and we live in a modern, abundant society, but we have the same neurological configurations as them. And so what is the issue? The issue is because in today's world, our brain is basically not ready for the type of stuff that we are literally experiencing today. And so one thing I want to talk about specifically, and in fact, I won't write it on the board because you can't really read it. It's a reflection. But one thing that is interestingly fucked nowadays is your dopamine system, right? Your dopamine system, from a neurological perspective, is your reward system, right? If you study biology, you probably know this more than me. But your reward system is essentially the chemical component of dopamine, or the hormonal component of dopamine. And dopamine is basically known as the reward hormone, right? It stimulates motivation. It gives you even a happy feeling. It makes you want to repeat the same tasks that, make you feel great. And so the dopamine system is essentially your navigator for you moving forward, because it focuses on a primary driver, which is motivation. And motivation is arguably one of the most important elements when it comes to your brain, right? Because it's what basically makes you move forward. And so in various books, such as The Stolen Focus, or Stolen Attention, I believe from John Harry, or Scattered Minds, these authors talk about how your brain and essentially your dopamine system, right, your reward system, is hijacked through the spoils of modern society, right? Coming back to the idea of abundant resource. And that's mainly because if you logically think about it, most of the things that our ancestors considered as rewards, for example, our ancestors were happy when they ate a meal once or twice a day, right? Some of you guys out there are eating like 5, 6, 7 meals a day. Now we can argue whether or not that's good or not, but the point is that your brain, you're essentially rewarding your brain constantly, right? And so the issue is when you constantly reward your brain with stuff, not only food, but sugar, sweet drinks, caffeine, and not to mention, oh my God, entertainment, short form content, you're constantly stimulating with dopamine your brain. So your brain is in overdrive, right? Because from a logical perspective, you're just consistently rewarding it. And so what happens is two things. The first thing is your threshold, right? Your tolerance for reward suddenly becomes much, much higher, right? And so I'll give you a very specific example. Let's say like you like sugar drinks, like an ice cream, right? Who doesn't like an ice cream? 30, 40 years ago, your grandparents were perhaps happy, right? This is very subjective, okay, by the way, so don't judge me on this. But your grandparents were, for example, very happy when they were able to have a nice ice cream or perhaps a nice movie once a week, right? And so the brain, what happened was back then, that the day where they actually watched the movie, let's talk about cinemas and movies, the day that they actually watched the movie once a week, the reward system was just much more happier, right? Because of the threshold was just much better for them rather than watching a movie every single day. Because think about it, if you are watching I don't know if you guys do this, but if you're watching, let's say, a cinema movie today, or if you're watching Netflix every single day, at one point your brain isn't like even that excited anymore to watch a movie, because it's just the stimulation always happens, right? And so you're thinking, okay, well, it's just another movie. And so what is the issue? The issue is that when your brain's threshold for dopamine or reward is too high, suddenly you want to start doing all sorts of stupid stuff. And hence why we have all these modern society problems with drug abuse and mental and anxiety problems, or people like doing stupid shit in the internet or trying stuff out that you've never heard of, that is literally one result of this. It's because every single day they are literally fucking up their brain so that to a point that they suddenly decide to do something even more stupider so that their brain just even gets more rewarded. And so what is the solution to this? The solution to this is a dopamine reflush. Again, I would love to write it, but just remember dopamine flush. Or in other words, you need to recalibrate your reward mechanisms. And now this is mentioned in many books of psychology, but there are different types of techniques and strategies on how you can basically reset your dopamine system. But one thing obviously I won't break down every single factor, but one thing I could share with you guys is to obviously eliminate, or if not minder or minimize the type of rewards. Like that's the first logical step. If you are eating or watching a movie every single day, cut that shit down, man. Cut it to 2 to 3 times a week. 2 to 3 times a week, for example. Or if you're addicted to video games, just play on the weekends, right? There's a reason why our parents did us, right? Like not only because they wanted to help us, but also, for our brain, I hope so. Or stuff like dessert and ice cream. Like if you're ordering Starbucks, right? If you're eating, drinking some caramel frappuccino every single day, cut that shit, man. Just do it twice a week, 3 times a week. If you're really addicted, just cut down less than it was the day before, the week before. So you get the point. You got to start cutting down on the rewards, right? So what happens is that we want to slowly recalibrate your dopamine/reward system so that when you actually enjoy the award on the day, the reward on the day, trust me, it just feels so much satisfying. And so that is point number 1. Now, point number 2, which I want you guys to pay a lot of attention to, and it's because I have experienced the same shit, is because if you do something, right, called delayed gratification, right? So basically, delaying a specific reward, you will essentially be more motivated in the moment to actually carry out the task, right? So let me give you a very specific example, because this is actually what I'm currently doing. All right, let's say that you like to watch a good series on Netflix, right? And so the issue is, if you're a student, you have assignments or presentations, right? You have specific assessments or exams or class tests that you gotta do. And so if you delay gratify a reward, right, such as watching Netflix, to after you finish your assignment, the reward, 1, becomes better, but number 2, your motivation to actually complete that assignment is magically higher. So how is that possible? And it's basically your brain is hardwired, and it'll literally do it. It'll do anything so that it could feel that sense of dopamine. So in other words, it could feel that type of reward, right? And so if you obviously delay Netflix until you finish your assignment, trust me, you finish your assignment. The third and last but not least, I know I mentioned 2 points, but I'm going to give you a bonus point. The third point, and I promise you this is the most satisfying, is that, and it comes back to the caption of this video, if you want to become a millionaire, then there's nothing more rewarding than you coming from a place that has stripped of all those resources, right, of all those abundance, and actually becoming in a state one day where you have the total accessibility to all of those resources. Because if you come from a place, right, in very simple terms, where you have everything, and then you don't want to, it doesn't make a difference, because then you decide to become a millionaire and it doesn't change, right? If you come from a place where you have most of the stuff, right, let's say you're already a millionaire, what's your motivation to become a millionaire? Logically, it doesn't even make sense. And so the same idea with, if you're coming from a, middle income background, right, and you have most of the stuff that you want to have one day, let's say you have a decent car, or you can enjoy good food, or you have most entertainment systems, you're subscribing to the coolest gadgets or softwares, I don't know, and suddenly you become a millionaire. It's like what's the difference then? Like the only difference is then you start purchasing luxury items, right? But I can guarantee you that most of the people that becoming millionaires, and I assume that's you guys as well, you don't want to only buy luxury items. You want to enjoy like other, goods of the world, right? You want to enjoy travel, great food. You want to meet interesting people. But if you're doing it right now, right, with a middle income background, then like what's the point of like doing that to become a millionaire, right? It doesn't really make sense. So what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that you should, like right now, I don't know, sleep in a temple or in a cave, because I'm asking you to strip yourself from the resources. What I'm trying to say here is to understand one, the place you want to be one day, right? So if you want to become a millionaire, imagine the lifestyle you will live, right? And so number two, I want you to literally brain train, right? Specifically a dopamine reward system, to the point that when you reach that stage one day, trust me, it will be the most satisfying feeling you ever had, because suddenly you can reward yourself with stuff that you have never had, or reward yourself with stuff that you were previously limited to. And so that is, in my opinion, one of the most satisfying things that you can ever imagine. And so with that being said, guys, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say here. If you do enjoy these videos, do subscribe. If you don't, literally don't. I don't care. But I actually do care, to be honest. It hurts my heart a little bit. But yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.